Hello everybody and welcome back to CFO Conversations. Today we have Henrik back in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about influence. How do we influence others? How do we manage that and how do we measure it as well? And I think as CFOs and senior finance leaders, we do carry a certain amount of influence in our role. But how do we influence, or how should we think about influencing others outside of our finance team? Henrik, have you got some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think, I agree. You know, some level of influence comes with your role or your title or so on, but not so much when it's outside your immediate team. I think influence comes a lot. It's almost an outcome of other things. I think mostly probably from doing your job well. I think if people trust you to do a good job, they know that you understand them and you have credibility with them, then what you say will carry a certain amount of weight with them.
Yeah.
And if you lack that, then probably
that becomes
not.
obvious. Yeah, that's right. And we had a conversation earlier around when the difference between when you've been in a role for a long time, say 2 or 5 or 10 years, your influence is very different potentially to when you're coming into a new role. And I know you and I have spent a lot of time in transformation as well. So often we get put into a new environment that may be struggling. So you need to quickly work out what's good, who's good, and what's not. And how do you demonstrate influence on day one? When you're in a scenario like that.
Personally, I think the fastest way is probably honesty. I think probably people will notice if you're honest and feel if you're honest, and that's probably the fastest route into influence, I would say. To be trusted and credible usually takes a little bit longer, but if you start with being honest, I think that will help a lot.
Yeah, and you've spoken before about being trusted, and I know what's worked for me is that I've actually demonstrated how I've seen this example, how I've seen this challenge before. So people, when you're in an environment where it's transformation, people are looking to you or looking to somebody to take the lead. So that might as well, in my book, that might as well be me. And so I need to demonstrate and tell them that I've seen this challenge before and how I've overcome it. And I think then people go, okay, looks like she knows what she's doing. Let's see the proof of that. But you've got to bring people on a journey as well, because influence is about how to bring out the best in others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also when you talk about measuring it, it takes quite a while for big decisions and leaders to, for it to come through, so you can really see it. But I think having examples from the past and a track record of doing it, that's going to help a lot, because it is hard you're really good at developing people at work and you're influencing things, and it may take months or a year before you can actually see that as a result in the organization. Yeah,
and it goes back to a conversation we had before about trust and belief, and knowing that you've got the ability to do this, to take people on a journey, I think is really important.
Even if you sometimes doubt yourself, as we've spoken about previously, I think that's just having the drive and the passion for it to start, to be honest and move forward, and then eventually you'll get the track record of whether it's change or developing people or other forms of influence that you have.
Yeah, so I think it's good to build up your war stories, as I call them, build up the examples that you've got about transforming, bringing change, getting some successful outcome. Or not. I mean, you can actually have a war story where it didn't end up well.
They're almost more powerful, I would say, if you're honest enough to say, I did some of this and it didn't work.
Yeah, that's right. So we won't go down that route.
Yeah, exactly. Let's not do that.
That's right.
And that's as useful as knowing what to do.
Yeah.
No, and I think examples and stories are probably the best way. I think, I mean, when I worked with Deloitte, I think in terms of, I've seen 40, 50 companies, and finance will always say that they have great influence over the business. And I don't have a statistical fact, but in a lot of cases, the business will respond and say, no, they don't. And it's funny how that, it's self-awareness, I think, is part of it as well, that you understand how much influence you have and how to work on it.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I like that analogy where the expectation gap is quite broad, but as we go into the future, finance are the business partners and are going to be the driver of change and of truth And so closing that gap between what the business thinks of you versus what you think of you
exactly.
is important as well. And as you say, bringing self-awareness is going to be the key.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. Like thinking you're influential when you're not is not going to impress anyone, right? I don't think that's not going to be very good.
Well, we'll leave the conversation there. We could talk about this for hours. So thank you, Henrik. It's great.
No problem.